Greetings, brothers and sisters. I've had some throat issues for the past 6 months, and my overall health is a lot better this year. I may have been being able to do a lot of outdoor work, and I'm in just better physical shape. I mean, I feel sort of a rejuvenation, but I've had some sore throats and things over the past 6 months. Been fighting like swollen glands and stuff, and so I wanted to get this video done because I was already gonna, in my mind, I was gonna make it yesterday for today. So, but I'm gonna probably take some days off and just sort of rest my vocal cords and see if that helps. But anyways, I want to get through this video first. And this is JoJo Magoo, and JoJo Magoo's taken a beating. They, basically burned the guy. So let's go through that. I want to just show you some clips here first.
220,000 Americans dead. If you hear nothing else I say tonight, hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially, anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America.
Don't you bear some responsibility for the outcome if the Taliban ends up back in control and women end up losing the rights?
No, I don't. Do I bear responsibility? Zero.
The big zero. I'm not sure when that, I think is that from a debate or a speech? I'm not sure. It's from probably 2020 when he was talking about Trump here. And so, they're getting the guy. We'll get to Chris Cuomo in a moment. He did an interview with Biden did an interview with George Stephanopoulos, and he's taken a beating from the mainstream media. Let's show you this clip first.
When you look at what's happened over the last week, was it a failure of intelligence, planning, execution, or judgment?
Look, I don't think it was a failure. Look, it was a simple choice, George. When the Taliban, let me put it another way. When you had the government of Afghanistan, the leader of that government getting in a plane and taking off and going to another country, when you saw the significant...
On day one. On day one. JoJo Magoo is not looking good. He's like, it's almost like his face is warping here. It's like his face is like not balanced right. His eyes aren't, just...
collapse of the Afghan troops we had trained, up to 300,000 of them.
Yeah, we all knew that was going to happen in 2002 or 3 when they couldn't do jumping jacks.
Just leaving their equipment and taking off. That was, that's what happened. That's simply what happened.
But we've all seen the pictures. We've seen those hundreds of people packed into a C-17. We've seen Afghans falling.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
What did you think when you first saw those pictures?
What I thought was...
That's ancient news. That was Trump's fault. That happened when Trump was president 5 days ago. Remember when Trump, I've only been president for 3 days. What are you talking about? That was on Trump's watch.
We have to gain control of this. We have to move this more quickly. We have to move in a way in which we can take control of that airport. And we did.
So you don't think this could have been handled, this actually could have been handled better in any way? No mistakes?
No, I don't think it could have been handled in a way that we're going to go back in hindsight and look, but the idea that somehow there's a way to have gotten out without chaos ensuing, I don't know how that happens.
He looks just so confused and lost.
I don't know how that happened.
He doesn't know how that happened. He doesn't know how anything happened. How did it happen, Joe? I don't know how it happened.
So for you, that was always priced into the decision?
Yes.
He just admitted that he thought it was going to be chaotic, which is, JoJo isn't making decisions. That's the point of this video. He's not making decisions. You think they're letting that guy make decisions? That's why they put him in there. Trump was trying to make his own decisions. Trump wasn't following the playbook, so they manufactured a Magoo presidency because he was going to be handled. And he is handled, and now they're burning him. I mean, they're taking him down. And it has nothing to do with, none of this has anything to do with him. He, I mean, this is what, they wanted him to be the fall guy here. So both CNN, I'll get to Chris Cuomos in a moment, and MSNBC News, I don't know which kisses Joe Biden or has protected Joe Biden more. Both of them. Like they both have, completely groveled in front of Joe Biden as he just dementias his way through his presidency and candidacy. But now they're both doing hit pieces on him, which is a huge change. And obviously, he's now more fair game than he was before. And so the Today Show, this is their piece on him.
Inside the airport, evacuations by the U.S. military accelerating. President Biden on ABC News vowing no American will be left behind, even if U.S. troops must remain beyond his August 31st withdrawal deadline.
If there's American citizens left, we're going to stay till we get them all out.
Look at this confused MNFer. And he's, that's just not somebody who's there, right? Just look at his face. He sounds like he's drunk there.
U.S. troops must remain beyond his August 31st withdrawal deadline.
If there's American citizens left, we're going to stay till we get them all out.
Like he looks like he's drunk, right?
The U.S. is now relying on the Taliban to allow Americans scattered throughout Afghanistan to get to the airport in Kabul without being attacked or arrested.
Now, that's a very loaded sentence. Americans are forced to rely on the Taliban for, after they show Joe Biden. That's the kind of stuff they used to do to Trump, right?
The State Department issuing this warning. The U.S. government cannot ensure safe passage. And Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin acknowledging the U.S. cannot rescue those who can't get to the airport themselves.
We don't have the capability to go out and collect up large numbers of people.
President Biden.
So that's just they're hammering the crap out of him here, right? That Americans are stranded in the middle of the city and only the good graces of the Taliban are going to allow them to live, right? That they're completely relying on the mercy of the Taliban.
Biden was asked whether his administration could have handled the withdrawal better.
The idea that somehow there's a way to have gotten out without chaos ensuing, I don't know how that happens.
But that's not what he said when he initially announced the troop withdrawal in April.
We'll not conduct a hasty rush to the exit. We'll do it responsibly, deliberately, and safely.
The president.
So they're, when they go back and they find where he's contradicted himself, that's not something they've done with Joe Biden. They just don't do that. They don't find ways that he past Joe Biden contradicts himself. They've never, and now they're all of a sudden doing that again. I mean, they're doing it for him like they did it for, specifically Trump, but, most other politicians. No one's gotten a free pass like Joe Biden by the press, the media.
Also bristled when pressed about those unforgettable images, including hundreds of people packed onto a C-17.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
In fact, it was 2 days earlier.
See, they're calling him a liar. They're fact-checking him. He doesn't know, 4 or 5 days ago, but it's only 2. And so, they're really hammering the crap out of him here.
The Biden administration says U.S. intelligence consistently identified the risk of a rapid collapse. But Joint Chiefs Chairman General Mark Milley revealed those assessments were for weeks or months.
There was nothing that I or anyone else saw that indicated a collapse of this Army and this government in 11 days.
What's he, who's he yelling at? We all knew it. They couldn't do jumping jacks, bro. We saw the footage. They were shooting at Americans in joint missions. This was Joe Biden even said that in a debate in 2011, 10 years ago. We knew this for years. Everyone knew that the Afghan army was going to collapse. You're saying you didn't know what everyone else knew?
Right now, there are believed to be shy of 15,000 Americans still in Afghanistan. The evacuation's picking up in the last 24 hours, but the defense secretary says still nowhere near where they want to be. Among the most powerful pictures, though, from this massive airlift operation, this touching shot, it shows an Afghan child you see covered in an airman's camouflage coat.
What are you doing here, bro? It's a touching photo. And this is also posted by Huffington Post, which was talking about how brave a guy he was for standing up to the warmongers. He's one of the big warmongers, right? He was, been voting for these wars and the military budgets for 48 years in various capacities. But I also saw Chuck Todd. Like I was, scanning through the channels maybe yesterday. It must have been yesterday. And Chuck Todd was saying that Joe Biden's losing his credibility in the sense of, and this is a guy, Chuck Todd, who's completely slathered all over Biden and was, not being journalistic with Trump, hammering him in a shill type fashion. And Chuck Todd said the whole reason that people voted for Joe Biden, his whole, the way that he framed his campaign and himself was that he was a Washington insider with experience, and he would make experienced decisions. He would make, blunders like Afghanistan. This is the kind of thing that Trump would do. And so he was basically saying that the whole reason he got elected over Trump has now been, completely blown up by this Afghanistan thing. And so these are these shills for Joe Biden who are all turning on him. And then there was this.
What happens now in Afghanistan? Do you believe the Taliban have changed?
No. Let me put it this way.
No.
I think they're going through sort of an existential crisis about, do they want to be recognized?
Look at this guy getting into the minds of the Taliban. Look at the joker.
By the international community as being a legitimate government. I'm not sure they do. But look, they
care about their beliefs more.
Well, they do. But they also care about whether they have food to eat,
He knows what the Taliban care about.
They have an income that can make any money.
Opium.
And run an economy. They care about whether or not they can hold together the society that they, in fact, say they care so much about. I'm not counting on any of that. But that is part of what I think is going on right now in terms of, I'm not sure I would have predicted, George, nor would you or anyone else, that when we decided to leave, that they'd provide safe passage for Americans to get out.
It's just so nice of them to do so. And so he's getting hammered left and right here. And let's go to the Chris Cuomo thing.
The Americans there are not sure if their country will bring them home. This is not what the reality is. That's not our question. Our question is, what will our government do about that reality? That is our focus here.
He says he's so concerned.
And the answers so far, frankly, are too slow and too little. How can you accept the State Department warning as many as 15,000 Americans stuck in Taliban country that they can't ensure safe passage to get them to the Kabul airport and fly them out?
It's crazy. It's madness. Who's responsible for this, Chris?
You must demand that the mightiest force on the planet does not surrender its own to this kind of fate from a bunch of zealot thugs.
Zealot thugs. He knows about thugs.
You had better do what you have to get Americans out. What does this country stand for, if not committing completely to protecting its own? Another bad sign, the administration seems to be allowing the Taliban to dictate terms here.
They're allowing the Taliban.
We're going to get everyone that we can possibly evacuate it. And I'll do that as long as we possibly can until the clock runs out or we run out of capability.
We will get out as many as possible.
Not everybody. Some are going to be left behind.
The clock runs out when you say it runs out. And as many as possible is all of them. That's what is possible. Bring them all home.
Bring them home. Let's get some ribbons out on the trees.
Now, the worst sign for the fate of many of your fellow citizens stranded in a hellscape is coming from our president, who is not echoing the urgency you're hearing expressed here.
All troops are supposed to be out by August 31st. Even if Americans and our Afghan allies are still trying to get out, they're going to leave?
We're going to do everything in our power to get all Americans out and our allies out.
But we don't have the power to get them all out. Let's just be honest. We got about 70% power. Joe's got about 3% power left.
Does that mean troops will stay beyond August 31st if necessary?
Depends on where we are
Again with the depends. He's wearing depends.
and whether we can ramp these numbers up to 5,000 to 7,000 a day coming out. If that's the case, they'll all be out.
Because we've got like 10 to 15,000 Americans in the country right now, right? And are you committed to making sure that the troops stay until every American who wants to be out is out?
Yes. We're
Yes.
going to try to get it done before August 31st.
But if we don't, the troops will stay.
If we don't, we'll determine at the time who's left.
And whether they're worth it or not. Because some of those people over there, they're just scumbags.
I have to say, headlines that Biden says troops will stay, that's not what he said. He didn't say they'll definitely stay after the 31st. That's not the truth. The truth is
Wait, are you maybe you get some gumballs here. We've already heard multiple lies. He said that was 2 days ago, it was 4 or 5 days ago. And let's get some gumballs in there to count his lies and gumballs.
he was qualified about it. And it shouldn't be qualified. The only must here is to get the people out, your people out. Biden must be pressed to do more. Now, one step back, okay?
He's got to be pressed to do more. He's not doing enough.
For those who must see this in terms of political blame, first, stop scaring people by saying millions of Afghans are going to come here. Nobody is using a number like that, okay? Nobody. Don't paint the reality. Like, you wonder why people are criticizing that kind of statement as oddly reflective of what Trump, I referred to as his brown menace argument about people coming over the southern border, taking your women and your jobs, killing everybody. That's what it sounds like when you say millions are coming here, Afghan refugees.
No, but it could be hundreds of thousands. I mean, that's not going to happen here because they don't want it to happen. But, there's going to be millions of Afghans fleeing the country. I mean, lots of them for obvious reasons. And they got to go somewhere. They've created a humanitarian crisis. And nobody wants refugees, people who have, basically homeless flooding into their country. No country wants to get a bunch of refugees from another country into their country. And America isn't going to bring back, there's limited, how many planes they have, right? Like how many Afghans can they bring back? And so, this is what's been created here.
Why exaggerate the number? This is about citizens and the people that we promised to help after they risked their lives for us. We should all be on the same page here. And the answer doesn't have to be that all come here. We have allies, right? We have options, right?
You can dump some of them in France, some of them France already struggling from our earlier wars. Because American and UN action, military action in various countries, including Syria and Iraq, has created a flow of immigrants into France, number one. They're struggling over there from that because they have open borders. But then they have all these other countries, Turkey, all these countries. When you screw over one country, you screw over the whole region. And people are not happy with what America did here. Aside from, Americans are watching this and they're like, well, what was it all for? And if you had a son die in the war or something like that, family member die in the war, it'd be one thing. But most Americans, it really doesn't affect you. You're just bummed because of the way it played out and the lies and all these things, how it was, the deception. But there are countries all around Afghanistan, the people in Afghanistan themselves, that are screwed over for years, right? Because that place is going to be a mess for a long time. And now they have the cutting edge American training and military equipment over there.
Now, in terms of why we are here, President Biden did not start this fire. It is fair to say Biden was given a bad hand by Trump and co.
He has to crap on Trump because that's what he does.
They made the deal with these terrorists. And then they started a major pullout even when the Taliban didn't do what they promised in that deal. Trump's own Secretary of Defense, Esper, says as much.
Yeah, but they could have brought troops back in like they're doing now. Joe Biden could have. He could have not gotten out. He didn't have to, he didn't even follow Trump's agreement to the date. he had a choice to make, and he made a choice. And again, like, I don't think Biden is responsible for the mess you see now. It's the original lies that the government and the politicians, Biden included, told for years and years about why we were over there, why America was over there. But again, he didn't have to follow on Trump's deal. He hasn't followed on any other Trump's deals, right, and policies.
But today, it all shifted. Biden could have changed the deal, could have planned differently, could have likely avoided this degree of chaos, and the administration did not. Period. And today, President Biden, frankly, sounded like President Trump.
Kablawi, look at this guy. Look at this crazy MNFer right here, bailing on his boy. Of course he sounds like Trump, because he's a worse version of Trump. He's a senile version of Trump. They're the same kind of a guy. I mean, people on the Trumpers don't want to admit this. They have the same sort of narcissism. They're cut from the same jib. They're very similar. They have the same problems, grabbing, snoozling, women, and I mean, not Trump with children, but they have all these same sort of, they're very similar. All the negatives that Trump has, the things that they were going to hammer Trump on, Joe Biden already has. He's older. I mean, they were questioning Trump's mental abilities, MSNBC and CNN, for years. And then Joe Biden, they run him, and he's even worse off, right? I mean, Trump's old, but at least he is much more cognizant. But now he's finally admitting it, right?
Feigning that what we're all seeing could not have gone any better.
No, I don't think it could have been handled in a way that we're going to go back in hindsight and look, but the idea that somehow there's a way to have gotten out without chaos ensuing, I don't know how that happens. I don't know how that happened.
Look, they say they were prepared for all contingencies. Clearly, you were not prepared for all contingencies. Clearly, you could have gotten your people out first and done this earlier.
See, Trump never had any kind of a debacle this bad. I mean, what can you say about Trump that had something like this? Like, if this happened under Trump, think about the way Chris Cuomo, the media, would be covering it. Because Trump's, this is a huge debacle. It's happening internationally, and the images are so graphic, and it's such a screw up. And again, like, I don't think, I think Joe Biden is right here. I mean, I think Magoo is right in the sense that there was going to be chaos no matter what. They're saying, well, you could have done it differently. Yeah, but if he evacuated people ahead of time, that would have been a collapse that would have ensued before they were ready to get everybody out anyway. And so it's a complete mess, right? But the issues that no one wants to look at is the reasons we went in the first place. The reason America went to Afghanistan was based in lies and complete deception. And so this is the outcome of something like that, right?
And if this president doesn't grasp the urgency of doing more and better here, some words of his may come back to haunt him. These.
There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of a embassy of the United States from Afghanistan. The likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
Happened. And that picture of Saigon, look, we don't have to compare it to anything else. It's bad enough on its own. And the best reason that we may not wind up plucking people, America may not wind up rescuing people from the roof of its embassy, is because they closed it so soon. But desperate efforts are not far off here. And know this, while those words may haunt this president, we may all be haunted by what happens in Afghanistan and is revisited here. The people that you break your promise to, if they are left trapped in that kind of desperation, they may come back to haunt you as some of the most ardent recruits looking to avenge the betrayal. We have seen it before. Learn from history or be doomed to repeat it.
Chris Cuomo laying a smackdown on JoJo Magoo, which is, I mean, this is JoJo Magoo. This is the JoJo Magoo the rest of us have been watching for the past 3 years, but they're finally, admitting it, right? That JoJo Magoo is a complete bozo. And it isn't even him because, like I said, he's not making these decisions. Nobody, is going to let Magoo, these guys who handle and run the country from the shadows, aren't going to let Magoo make decisions, right? He's being burned here, which we always knew he would be at some point, because he's not up to the challenge mentally. I mean, he's not, mentally competent. So the point of this video and what I thought was, because I was going to just take today off, but I thought I would make this video before I forgot about what I was going to say here. But I thought that this was important enough for me to push through and make this video. And one of the big mistakes that people now make, especially I would say Americans, but across the world, this is something that is very prevalent in the so-called truth community, but with sheeple and everybody else as well. And it's the idea that you can figure out the truth by sifting through the lies. That by listening to the liars tell their lies over and over again, that you will somehow figure out the truth. You're searching through a haystack of lies looking for a needle of truth that also looks exactly like a piece of straw, right? Or a piece of hay. It's not possible. That by searching the deception, you're never going to figure out the truth. People going down the rabbit hole. I mean, it's very prevalent in the truth community. Most of you are probably doing this. If you want to find the truth, you have to find the truth. You have to go to the source. You have to, this is what I'm talking about in terms of the heartfulness meditation, connecting with God within and going directly, bypassing all the peripheral, earthly, worldly stuff that you're seeing, the illusions that you're seeing, and go directly to the source. Because what has happened now, there's so much distrust that even if the truth is sitting right in front of you, you can't see it. The loss of trust in your fellow human being. Most people, and I'm talking about probably in high 90% of people, would agree that politicians lie, that corporations lie, that individual people lie, that the media lies, right? They don't trust their politicians. They don't trust the media. They realize everything's a lie. Plus, your entertainment is all illusionary. Your movies and TV shows, I mean, so much with everything on the internet is all an illusion. The internet itself is an illusion. It's really code. It's binary code that creates a replica of pictures and events and movies and whatever it is, right? You're not seeing with the actual, it looks like reality. When you're watching a TV show on, animals or fish or something, you watch a video about something that happens in nature, it's like you're right there. It's like you're watching it. In fact, with these, 4K TVs and things like that, it's actually more vibrant and more like in terms of your optical perception, it's even more clear than real life, but you're just watching a copy. It's not even, it's a duplicate. It's not, it's not the actual animal, the actual person. It's a duplicate. It's a representation, just like a picture is, of somebody. And so with most people believing the government lies, the media lies, I mean, everyone else, everyone lies a little bit. The problem is, how far do you think they will go? That's the difference between sheeple and the people in the truth community. How far you think the people that control the system, the politicians, the, whatever it is, the media, how far do you think they'll go? What level of evil are they willing to commit? And that's the difference between people in the truth community and people who are considered sheeple. Not that people aren't lying, that people aren't naughty, but are they really evil? Well, they do evil stuff. And if they do think that, it can't be everybody. It can't be the whole government. It has to be just Trump, or it has to be just Biden. It has to be just the Democrats or just the Republicans or a small subsection of them. Whatever, group that they're willing to identify has to be a small subset of humanity. It can't be everybody. It's just always, a few bad apples. One corporation, not all of them. One politician, one political party, not everybody. There has to be some good people out there, right? There has to be some people who won't, go over to the dark side who are involved in controlling the system, right? It can't be everybody. They think the lies make up 5%, 10%, 15% of whatever you see on the media, where people in the truth community think it makes up 110%, right? And that's the problem here. Both are, going in the wrong direction. Where people there's many people in the truth community, whatever the government says, whatever's happening is a part of some nefarious plan by what I call the controllers. Like a person will say, hey, I was comment number 667 because you only had 666 comments. So I left a comment quick before the world exploded. Well, 666 is going to come up in real life. It doesn't have to do anything with the mark of the beast, right? Like you're going to have to get to to get to 667, you got to pass through 666. So every video that gets more than 665 views is at some point going to be on 666, right? It's not necessarily some part of some major plot. And that's one of the problems with the truth community. So with the sheeple, they're limited in what they're going to believe as possible lies and what people will do and how much of it can be some sort of, conspiratorial action, right? Somebody I know through the Heartfulness system I used to talk to a lot. We were kind of friends for a while and had a falling off. But he is a rocket scientist who works for MIT and NASA, basically. And this was years and years ago, and he was saying that he works, with people in the government, and most of them are just incompetent bozos. A lot of them are, he's working with scientists who are socially inept and kind of clueless, and most of them are just trying to keep their job, and, they're thinking about themselves. And he said that's why there can't really be a conspiracy because these guys are too, incompetent and whatever to pull off some conspiracy. And I'm like, no, that's exactly why they could, because the majority of people aren't going to see it, or, most of them are so clueless, even if the conspiracy, they're working on the conspiracy and they're a part of it, they don't even know it. Like that's how conspiracies would actually work. They can't work if everybody knows. In fact, in these higher levels of what I call the controllers, they don't tell the lower level people what they're doing. They only give them enough knowledge for them to complete their tasks. They don't let them in on the whole plan. That's how everything works. Even on a sort of military level, they don't want somebody knowing everything, some soldier or whatever it is. On the lower levels, they don't divulge the whole, the whole conceptual plan behind their military strategy for every, person involved in it. And so this is, whatever it might be. It's a need-to-know basis. They kept the atomic bomb projects a secret, right? Nobody knew about it. And there was like 500,000 people working on it. And they didn't even know what they were working on. It was something like that. You can, research that. But they kept it a secret until they completed it. Nobody knew, the Manhattan Project, right? They didn't, people didn't even know that we're working on it, what they were working on. But if you understand the intelligence community has, your government has all this information that's classified that they won't share with you, and a lot of it has to do with you. It's not about foreign governments. It's not proprietary or something like this. It's not anything that they need to keep secret for national security reasons. That's the reason they say they keep it secret from you. And your government is keeping secrets from you forever, big secrets, and lots of them. And so you can't trust them, obviously. Most people kind of understand that, but don't really understand it. And see, this is the whole problem with the Afghanistan thing, right? This debacle. Because I've been saying over and over again, it's not about what's happening now. It's about what happened 21 years ago when we went into Afghanistan. There was the official events and the official story, and American people were desperate. 80% were behind George W. Bush to get some payback, and the government said, all right, this is what we're going to do, and this is why we're doing it. And none of that's held up. None of it's held up to any kind of real scrutiny. Didn't get any real scrutiny. And so the politicians and the powers that be rubber stamped these military actions that have now cost over $3 trillion. But what you're seeing on a large scale is the chaotic outcome when people back a lie, back a deception, and what you were told, what you were promised was never going to be delivered. This has happened over and over again. But the majority of people can't see it and don't focus on that, even in the truth community. See, most people in the truth community, especially the right-wingers, the disgruntled Trumpers and QBs or whatever it is, again, QBs aren't truth people, but whatever, that all these people who are, they have Republican leanings, or all the people who just dislike Joe Biden and have disliked what he's done and see the incompetence, want to see him go down, and that's what everyone's focused on. Oh, wow, Joe Biden, yeah, he's really screwed this thing up. Well, for years he did, but now, this would have happened to anybody. This is why Trump didn't do it. Trump wanted to get out of Afghanistan. He didn't want to, he's got his narcissism, and they were already hammering him so much. He knew that this would have been his biggest disaster. This thing that's happened to Joe Biden is worse than anything that happened to Trump. All the things that they accused Trump of, none of them were of this magnitude, the graphic images and the global ramifications. And Joe Biden said, oh, we're back. Remember, he went to Europe and he went to the G7. Oh, America's back. We're back. We're not going to have some cowboy in there like Trump who's making his own decisions. We're back at the table. I'm going to listen to my advisors. I'm going to be handled. I'm going to, go along with the status quo and the pre-existing plans. I'm not going to go off the farm and make my own decisions. And so this isn't about JoJo Magoo at all. He ran on, he was just going to be, the run-of-the-mill president and go with, he was going to listen to experts. He said that all along during the campaign. Trump doesn't listen to his experts. I'm going to listen to my experts. And so this is not JoJo Magoo making the decision. I think everyone should realize this. This isn't, him. This is him getting burned, him being the fall guy. And I said whoever got elected was going to be the face of the collapse. And so the deeper meaning here is everything's a lie. Everything about America is a lie, right? There's, what we believe to be America, like what we think we're seeing when we look at the computer. We think we're seeing reality, but we're just seeing digital code. It's an illusion. And, life on planet Earth is an illusion. It's called Maya. I've talked about that before. Our physical bodies are even an illusion to some extent. Our souls are what are real. Our souls, our essence, is what's real, and it's now housed in a physical reality. And so even though it seems, all right, I can feel things, I can touch them, I can see them, I exist in this three-dimensional reality that seems so real, but it's, an illusion, right? And the problem is when when there's so much lies and so much deception and so much deep fake kind of stuff out there, right? That when there's, let's say extraterrestrials showed up, aliens showed up, and with legitimate spaceships, and people are like, oh, that's an illusion, that's a holograph. People wouldn't believe it, right? If the aliens came down and said, hey, look, and they showed whatever it was, people are like, oh, that's just that's fake, whatever it is, or those are demons, Christians, those aren't real, whatever it is, people would think. And if they had superior technology and wisdom, and they came in and said, look, you guys have to stop indulging in all the things that you enjoy. If they told you things you didn't want to hear, boo, get out of here, aliens, boo, right? I hear this all the time. People are like, why don't you use your influence to do this or that? I don't have any influence. People don't listen to me. People will listen to you until you say something they don't want to hear, which is usually the primary thing that they have to do. That's, what I've seen from the heartfulness masters. So people who do the heartfulness system, especially people in India who are, they're bound to find gurus. It's part of their culture. Having a guru or a spiritual master is congruent with their upbringing and their culture. It's not here in America. It's something we reject, especially, weirdly enough, people will want to be taught. They want to have teachers, and they want to have people who are, mentoring them in America. Sometimes, because there's a rebellion there on every levels, but they're opening to somebody teaching them the violin or teaching them, whatever it might be, and going to school and learning. But in terms of spirituality, no. There's just, they don't want it. But in India, they do. And the people who practice the heartfulness system, if they understand the literature and what the masters, the four masters of the system have accomplished, they're the highest developed spiritual, accomplishments that have ever happened on planet Earth. And you can feel it through the transmission. And most people who've done the heartfulness system have had, I don't want to call them miracles, but things have happened internally to them and changes. And there's things that you see that I've, experienced myself that show you this thing's on a whole different level, right? And so you think, all right, if they think that this person is so evolved, as someone who has merged back in the source, and many of the people in India do, and we're talking about 200,000-300,000 people who follow this system, that, and the masters of the system give very subtle suggestions. They're not supposed to give orders, and because you have to choose to do it. There's no force that's supposed to be used, right? And so, for example, Master Charji came out and he said to all the Indians that he thought it would be a good idea if they dropped their caste name. Like everybody in India has a name that represents the caste they're in. When you hear this name, their names are, I don't understand the naming. Like it's oftentimes the first names pass. It's I don't understand it. But he asked the people, he said the caste system is, horrible for this country, and it would be good if you dropped your caste names so that you wouldn't be a part of it, and it would be something, he wanted to get rid of the caste mentality in the heartfulness system. And only 11 people did it, and 10 of them were untouchables, which was the lowest caste. So, of course, they wanted to get rid of their caste names, right? So there was only one person who did it. You understand this? And this has happened time and time again. Even yesterday, an email came out from the Heartfulness System recommending the YouTube channel and saying, Daji's producing all these videos for you guys, because I went to the YouTube channel and I realized, that the view count is very low on most of the videos. I mean, considering I guess they have over 250,000 subscribers now and over, 300,000 people worldwide that do the system, but they're getting 3,000 views on some of the videos. I mean, think about that, right? And I know they're bummed about it, and I actually explained this to, various people about the YouTube channel and about what people are interested in. They're not interested in a solution. And so you have all these people that are very devoted. Like I know lots of people that the heartfulness system is their number one thing, but they're not watching the YouTube videos. They're not reading the literature, And so how could it be your number one thing if you're not into it, really, right? I mean, they say that, and a lot of them, do the practice and they're invested in it, but they're only into it, on one level. Like lots of people watch the videos, and I can see by the comments they say, thanks Daji, whatever thanks Master. They say things like this in the comments. If you look at the comments, and I don't think they really. Oh, this is so great. They say, this is wonderful, but nothing specific. Like, are you really watching the videos, right? And people who rush to comment, like, saying first before the video, you even watch the video. I mean, you see this all the time on every YouTube channel. People rushing to comment, rushing to the comment section because they want to interact with other people and they want to express themselves, but they're not really listening or watching the videos. People don't listen to you. Like, I've experienced this on this YouTube channel, but personally and on every level. If people think that you're, somehow have something to offer them and that you've convinced them that you have, the ability to see things, like I have, a high level of pattern recognition, being dyslexic, and, I have a lot of other things that help me do this job and do it well. Like just, abilities that I have, talents, and just things that are particular to my personality configuration. And I've been doing it for a long time, but people will say, trust my abilities to whatever extent. But as soon as I say something that disagrees with some fundamental core belief of theirs, they turn on you. They'll turn on me or anybody else. I mean, whatever it is, right? This happens over and over again. That's why I said, Christians say they really wish they could have met Jesus, but the majority of them, and I'm talking like in the high 90s, would reject Jesus if they met him. If Jesus was reincarnated right now and was on the physical earth, the majority of Christians would not recognize him and would reject him and his teachings because he would say things you don't want to hear, which is what every saint and higher developed spiritual being does. They say things that go against things that you don't want to give up or things that you don't want to stop or things that you believe in. And that's, the problem with the human race. That when the truth is told to them and their ego doesn't like it, they turn on the people telling them that. That's why people turned on Jesus in the first place. It would happen even more now. People are more degraded now. I mean, even in that part of the earth years ago, which was not a great part where Jesus was, incarnated. I mean, even now it's more degraded here than it was there, and it was pretty degraded there. People lose focus on what it's really about, right? And it's not the hokey pokey. When anybody says that's what it's all about, I always go, the hokey pokey. It's like a mental connection I have. I've said it in some videos. But I'll be watching somebody on TV going, that's what it's all about. I'm like, no, it's hokey pokey is what it's all about. And, I was a part of a couple of movements within the truth community early on. They were things I covered before anybody else, or before, very few people covered them. The It's a Man thing, that's a man, it's a man, right? Saying that about celebrity women and cloning. Like, I was one of the first people, maybe the first, that said that they could clone people because they can, right? They can clone people. They can clone a horse, they can clone people. But then this idea came out, and I, bought into it before I thought it through, that they were cloning politicians and celebrities and replacing them with clones. And it's not possible. See, the way that they clone animals right now, the reason I know they're cloning people or could clone people is because they have the technology, and that's out there. We know they have the technology, and they've cloned animals. And so the only thing that's stopping them is ethics and flimsy international laws. And so we know that, behind closed doors in secret, they're cloning humans because they can. But in terms of the way that people think about cloning, the technology that's available now is to take cells of an animal, a mammal, and turn that into a baby, and the baby grows up into a human being, or an rhesus monkey, or a horse, or whatever it is, a dog. I mean, that's how it works. They just are replacing the reproductive process with human cells, with mammal cells. And so that's the technology that is available that we know they have. And they always have more technology than they let on. But people who believe, they say, that's not a Joe Biden, that's a clone. Because I get comments like this all the time. And do you know what you're saying when you say that? Have you really thought it through? Because I know you haven't. I mean, I get clone comments all the time about Britney, about, everybody, celebrities. No, that's a clone. That's not that's a clone. And I'm like, do you know what you're saying? And when I say this to you, you're going to reject it because you're too locked in your belief. That's what happens all the time. For you clone believing MNFers out there, right? That Biden's been cloned, or Britney's been cloned, or whatever it is. So I just want you to think about this. Divorce yourself from your belief. Suspend your belief for a second that everybody's cloned. And there's a second piece to this that's more important, but I want to go through this. And I'm using the clone thing. It could be any number of beliefs that are out there that are controversial within the truth community. The Q stuff, the flat earth stuff, the, it's a man stuff, where people are very locked in and they just leave those comments all the time. It's flat, it's a man, that's a clone. You didn't have COVID, you just had the flu, the flubies, right? Like, there's just these people that will hear something in a video and they'll react to it in that way. Like, it's like some sort of idiotic response that they have to give when anything that confronts their belief, and they put out some kind of a bumper sticker saying, it's a clone, it's a clone, it's a man, it's flat, you had the flu, right? So again, you cloners, just suspend your belief for a second and think about the logic of what I'm about to say. Just, in a reasonable way. The case against clones, right? This is the case against celebrities and other people being replaced by clones. So, like I said, the way that they do cloning now is they just repeat the reproductive process without the sperm and the egg. They use clone cells to create an embryo and all these things, right? And it's not something that's that hard for them to do. So they can easily clone things. And the other piece to this is they don't even have an artificial womb that's worked, where it delivered a baby, where they create a womb and they grow clones like in pods that you see in movies. Those things don't exist yet, at least in terms of what they're able to admit here. because what they do is they take an embryo and implant the clone embryo in a dog or a female dog's uterus, or whatever it might be, the mammal's uterus, a woman's uterus of that species, right? In vitro fertilization, similar to that, right? And so it's not like they have clone pods somewhere, a clone farm somewhere. They don't have that technology, at least as far as we know. Now, there's this guy that came out and said he was a clone, involved in cloning, and he gave an explanation of getting around that, and he was crazy. He was just batshit crazy. Like, I saw the guy. People were like, no, you never heard this guy talk. I'm like, yeah, now that I have, I know that he's, and he's not saying things with any sort of scientific integrity. He's just talking about magic as far as we would know. And so what you believe, if you believe Joe Biden or Britney Spears was cloned, that they can take cells from Britney Spears and they can, or Joe Biden, and they can grow a body in a artificial womb, none of which is something that has, as far as, anything that's out there is possible. This is some like James Bond villain type of stuff. And then they can accelerate the growth of the, now you're taking basic human cells and you have to do something to them, mess with the DNA in some ways to accelerate them until they turn into a 37-year-old or 38-year-old Britney Spears, whenever you think they cloned her. And then she wakes up, right? She stops, like she accelerates, her age accelerates in this, this artificial clone uterus, and they grow in 3 months into a 37-year-old woman, not just an adult 21-year-old, but is aged to 37 or 38 or wherever she is. And now you have this blank 37, 38-year-old woman who has no memories, no muscle memories, no anything. And then they can upload a personality into this creature, right, this human being, that has memories, that has language, and it comes out of the clone bag ready to speak and pretend to be Britney Spears. If you go into a coma and you don't use your legs or your whatever for 6 months, it's like you can never walk again, right? If you go in a coma for a long period of time, you lose the ability. You have to go through rehabilitation, and you'll never get back what you once had. You have to relearn how to talk, all these things. People have strokes and things where they get wiped out and they have to start from scratch, right? And so a baby goes through all these milestones. In the first 2.5 years of your life, you go through more milestones and your brain is growing. And, you have to go through those things when your brain is, in an infant state. And then as it develops, an adult human brain, you can't just program it with a computer and then, hop up off the table and start to walk and talk. An adult clone would be crawling around the floor, drooling on itself like a baby, right? And so we don't have anything close to resembling that technology. But let's say we did, then we don't, and you can't do it, and whatever, right? It's not possible. But it's even more impractical, because why would they bother to do that? They don't need Britney Spears, they don't need Joe Biden, they don't need any of these people. They can just replace them with somebody else, not a clone or they can just put somebody else in their role. They don't need Donald Trump. They could find somebody who has similar characteristics. And what made Donald Trump was his embracing of ideas that people wanted to hear. And this is the whole point of what I'm saying here. It's about what you want to hear. When you go looking for something, you're going to find somebody who's going to tell you what you want to hear or validate your beliefs. And you're going to follow them because that's more important to you than the truth. Most people would rather follow a liar that tells them what they want to hear than follow a truth teller that tells them what they don't. A saint, a spiritual giant, right? People are more obsessed with the negative. If somebody said, here, come over here and look at the truth, you can come and meditate on the truth. You can dive into the truth. You can dive into the source of all knowledge instead of going through the lies. But I like looking through the lies. I really like it. I like going through the lies. I'm into the lies. Why are you telling me about the truth? I'm going to figure out the truth by going in through all the lies and figuring out all the lies and what's true about the true story. I'm going to figure out the true story behind the lies, and then I'm going to know everything because I'm going to look at all the lies. I'm going to figure out what the truth is. Well, yeah, okay. Sure you are, right? Yeah, good luck with that. And see why I'm saying this, I'm just using the cloning as an example because I got, 10 cloning comments in the last couple of days, right? And if you're going to tell people you believe in cloning, that these people are cloned, then you have to come up with, if you're saying it's factual, like you can say, hey, I think that's a clone. That doesn't look like Joe Biden or doesn't look like Britney Spears. I think it's a clone, or it could be a body double, something, right? If you say it in a vague way, I have this idea, I think, whatever it is, it seems weird. All right, yeah, that's totally acceptable. But if you're going to say that's a clone, for sure, they've replaced Joe Biden and Britney Spears with a clone, and that's factual. I mean, that's the kind of comments I get all the time. I've said this over and over again. Well, if you're going to say it like it's a fact, state it like you know, then when somebody says to you, explain to me how scientifically that works. Well, I don't know. All the problems I just told you. The accelerated aging, the lack of, artificial womb, as far as we know, right? There's no evidence to support your theory. It's just, well, they lie to us all the time. They're doing stuff behind closed doors. We don't even know. All right, yeah, maybe they are, right? Maybe they're doing that. But if you're going to talk to people who are so-called normies or sheeple, right? Some of them are scientifically oriented. They say, all right, explain it to me. How does it work? Explain your theory to me, because it's just a theory. You don't have any proof. And then you say, well, I don't know any of those things. I don't know. I can't explain it. Like I've said that over and over again to all these various theories out there. What's your working model of this? And if I said that to most of the people who leave these comments, they would give a link to a video that they can't explain or don't really understand, but believe in fully, right? This is a plague on the truth community. And so don't state it like a fact, right? You don't have any, you can't, this is what I had to go through. Because I once believed that people might have been replaced by clones. I thought, all right, yeah, I kind of believe that. But then I thought through it and what I knew about cloning, what I knew about, all of it. And what I didn't know then and I know now is that it doesn't matter. None of these people are important. They're all interchangeable. You can throw somebody else into the role. Nobody's that significant because people don't follow a person. They follow somebody who agrees with what they believe in. As soon as Trump started telling Trumpers the truth and wasn't pandering to his audience, they would have turned on him. No matter how much they love Trump, if he, for 1 second, reversed some of the things, the core beliefs of his followers, they would turn on him. This would have, like I said, Jesus, right? You could meet Jesus if you're a Christian. He would tell you things that are against your fundamental core beliefs, tell you things that the Bible, there are lies in the Bible or things that he didn't say or whatever it might be, things that you hold dear, and you would turn on him. They would. They turned on him before, his followers. Why do you think they turned on him? Because he said things they didn't want to hear. This happens to every higher developed spiritual being. You might love them. You feel the loving energy. You feel, it's the transmission, the heartfulness system. There's people, 200,000, 300,000 people worldwide. Many of them love the transmission. They love feeling the transmission that's given, the energy that's given. They have ample proof that the master of the system is legitimate and the system's legitimate. And yet when they hear something they don't like, they either ignore it or, rebel against it or whatever it is. I've seen it over and over again. And so people who hate Joe Biden, they're like, oh, this is Joe Biden's fault, whatever it is, especially new truthers that never really confronted what happened in 2001 as at its factual basis or non-factual basis. People who like George W. Bush and identify as Republicans and can't, they want to blame Obama, they want to blame Biden, but they don't want to go back to the origin of the story. See, as it stands now, I don't have faith in people rising up to a higher level of consciousness. I know they can. I know, from my own experience with heartfulness meditation and seeing other people that it can happen. But even then, there's people who rose up and fell, right, who got dragged back down into mundane, desired-based type of, addictions or whatever it might be. People who are put in higher regions in the heartfulness system, European people, American people, who experimented with LSD or drugs afterwards and things, stupid stuff, right? Not realizing what had happened to them or, this great gift they were given. And I've seen it, throughout humanity. People can rise up and sometimes do, but don't sustain it. They usually dive back down into the animalistic, ego-driven, desire-based existence, especially now with the Kali Yuga and our modern-day system, the debt-based economic system, and the weakening of people on the fundamental basis where their love energy has been drained, and they are, they have been told their whole life that they have to be, the only way to achieve happiness, and happiness is their goal, is through fame and fortune and meeting their material desires. And once they figure out, like I cover over and over again with celebrities, that is a lie, it's a false goal. In the same way that the Afghanistan's blowing up is the same way that a celebrity's life blows up when they realize they're more miserable than they were before they were famous, right? And so, I cover it here time and time again, and that there's a spiritual solution. But even for people who try the heartfulness system or, find some other spiritual path that, helps them connect to God, is their ability to sustain it. They might feel it and do it in the beginning. They might, like it when it's new, but can they sustain that, right? Can they, shift to that higher level? Like, can they maintain that higher level, the more, the deeper level of existence? I mean, I struggle with myself. It's not something like I'm saying like, oh, everyone else isn't as good as me. It's not, I'm including myself in this. It's a very difficult thing to do now, and not difficult in the sense that it's hard. People just don't want to do it. You have to really want it, right? When you, just like anything else, you have to pursue it. You have to put your energy and effort into it. You have to commit to it, right? You have to, see the difficult times through, and you have to, when your ego gets bruised and you get butthurt and things, you got to realize, well, it's still real. It's just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's not true, right? I mean, that's, that's where we are as a species. And so they're turning on Joe Biden now, and people think this is a win, but it's just part of a plan, right? And I don't, they're not psyched about Kamala, so we'll see what happens next. But it's not something to celebrate, right? It's just, the only thing to celebrate here is that the, chickens have come home to roost. The original lies that many of us, the old timers in the truth community saw through back in the early 2000s, we now know that all those wars were disastrous. The places where the wars took place are worse than, especially in terms of the goals of the, the army and the president, the foreign policy ministers. In terms of what they wanted to achieve, they didn't achieve them. And there's, $4 trillion gone and whatever else, right? Lives lost and just embarrassment for the U.S. and a lack of, in terms of a validation of America's status. I mean, it's America failing, right? That's all America failing. It's based in the lies of the early 2000s. And going back to this stuff about cloning and clones, and the final piece to this is it's really hard to prove, impossible to prove, not just to so-called sheeple who don't want anything to do with such extreme views, right? It's things that seem so outlandish, but to other people in the truth community. It doesn't matter, right? You can't prove it, and no one's going to accept it, so it's just like a lost cause. What happens is people end up in little subgroups, often with some manipulative truther leader that tells them what they want to hear, right? And, form some sort of almost like truther cult where it becomes us against the world, right? This is what happened with the Cubies. And they would come in and fight with you, attack you, right? Spam you, report you, do whatever they could to silence you because you didn't believe in their faulty beliefs or beliefs that they couldn't prove, and was never going to change the narrative. When people won't accept even subtle ideas of corruption and, evil in the government, and you're going for clones, right? like you want, it's a clone. Why? Yeah, you can believe whatever you want, but why put it out there in public and embarrass the truth community and yourself, right? And not be able to prove it. It's something you just can't win, right? It's not it's a dead issue. I've seen this over and over again. Even when we were right, there wasn't enough facts and the media got to it and people started to, make fun of it, right, and it become a dead issue. You have to just let it go, right? You got to fold. You got a losing hand, right? You were dealt a losing hand, whether you're right or not. Sometimes you just have to fold and, wait for things to develop like are happening now. So all of us who were there in the early 2000s, and we're talking about this as being, fake wars, illegitimate wars, lied to about the reasons for wars, now we're being validated. Eventually it'll come back around, and that's all you're going to get. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.